Global News and Zuma Nigeria. Many thanks for joining me. The headline says Netanyahu, Israel is not looking to occupy Gaza. Israeli forces hit Gaza's main hospital complex. Delhi kids suffer from severe smog. Portugal to hold snap elections in March, and diplomats caution Biden on rising Arab anger. On the Israel-Gaza war, Benjamin Netanyahu, Israeli Prime Minister, has said his country does not plan to occupy or rule Gaza after the end of its war with Hamas, but this enclave must be demilitarized, de-radicalized, and rebuilt. According to a report on Thursday, Netanyahu said Israel will need to find a civilian government to govern the enclave, which has been run by Hamas since 2006, without stipulating who will form such a body. Netanyahu said a credible force will be required to enter Gaza as necessary to kill the killers and prevent the re-emergence of a Hamas-like entity. His comments come days after he said Israel will take responsibility for Gaza's security for an indefinite period after the end of its war with Hamas, token pushback from the United States. White House National Secretary spokesperson John Kirby on Tuesday said President Joe Biden did not believe that reoccupying Gaza will be the right thing to do. Israel pulled out its soldiers and Israeli settlers from Gaza in 2005, but continues to maintain a blockade that controls almost all access to the Hamas-governed enclave by land, air, and sea. U.S. officials have earlier suggested that the Palestinian Authority should rule Gaza after the war, which Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas has said will only be possible under a political solution that returns territory captured by Israel in the 1977 Arab-Israeli War. On Thursday, Netanyahu reiterated his opposition to a ceasefire with Hamas as the Biden administration declared that its ally had agreed to daily 4-hour pauses in fighting to allow civilians to flee hostilities. A ceasefire with Hamas means a surrender to Hamas, surrender to terror, Netanyahu said, adding that Israel's military was performing exceptionally well and will continue its campaign however long it takes. Still on Israel-Hamas conflict, the health ministry in Hamas-governed enclave has said Israel has raided 4 hospitals in Gaza, including the enclave's major medical complex, resulting in what appear to be numerous casualties. Israel's military hit a yard at the Al-Shifa hospital complex, where several of displaced Palestinians are sheltering, Health Ministry spokesperson Ashraf Al-Qudra said on Friday. Israel is now undertaking these dangerous steps against the hospitals to put them completely out of commission and subsequently displace the people sheltering in them, as well as the patients and medics, Al-Qudra said, according to report. Israel's military has said Hamas operates a command center at the site of the hospital, including entries to its extensive tunnel network, which Hamas and hospital officials have denied. Mohammed Abu Salmiya, Director General of Al-Shifa Hospital, said the strike hit civilians located next to a number of journalists in the yard, wounding 4, including 2 critically injured. He said medics and patients were in a state of fear due to near constant explosions near the facility. Al-Qudra said 2 children's hospitals, Ad-Rantisi and Al-Nasser, had also been hit by direct attacks and bombardments on Friday. Indonesia's foreign ministry also reported that explosions overnight destroyed the Indonesian hospital, which sits at the northern end of the enclave, with numerous of injured and displaced Palestinians sheltering nearby. Indonesia once again condemns the savage attacks on civilians and civilian objects, especially humanitarian facilities in Gaza, the ministry said in a statement. Holding up measles shrapnel, Atef Al-Khalut, the hospital's director, said this is what the occupation is throwing at hospitals, measles shrapnel. Let the world bear witness to what the occupation targets are. In 24 hours, the hospital will be out of service. It seems the Israeli occupation forces are not happy with the persistence of the Indonesian hospital, nor the steadiness of the people of northern Gaza. Omar Shakir, Human Rights Watch Israel and Palestine director, said medical facilities must be protected and that no area is a free fire zone. The attack on Al-Shifa is the newest in a series of reported strikes on or close to Gaza City Hospital in recent days. Israel's military bombed an ambulance outside the hospital last week, killing 15 people, according to Palestinian officials. Away from Israel and Gaza war, now the Spartan emergency room of the government-run Chancha Nuru Balchikasalia Hospital in the Indian capital is packed with children struggling to breathe. Numerous have asthma or pneumonia conditions that spike as air pollution peaks each winter in the megacity of 30 million people. Doctors blame the acrid air that blights New Delhi every year. Delhi frequently ranks among the most polluted major cities on the planet, with a mixture of factory and vehicle emissions exacerbated by seasonal agricultural fires. According to monitoring from IQ Air on Thursday, the level of PM 2.5 particles small enough to enter the bloodstream topped 390 micrograms per cubic meter. That's over 25 times the daily maximum recommended by the World Health Organization. Government efforts have so far failed to solve the country's air quality problem, and a study in the Lancet Medical Journal attributed 1.67 million premature deaths to air pollution in the world's most populous country in 2019. Now on election matters, Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa, Portugal's president, has dissolved parliament and called snap elections 2 days after the country's prime minister resigned amidst a continuing corruption inquiry. On Thursday, Rebelo de Sousa said the country will hold snap elections on March 10th, the second in as many years. By law, an election must take place within 60 days of the issuing of a presidential decree dissolving parliament. The president had said he will only disband parliament where the Socialist Party holds a majority of seats after a vote on the budget for 2024. That budget, which includes tax cuts for the middle class, spending on social programs for the poor, and a 24% surge in public spending amidst weakening economic growth, was passed by the House on October 31st. It must be finally approved by November 29th. After meeting with the major political parties on Wednesday and the Council of State, a consultative body, on Thursday, the president said giving lawmakers time to pass the budget will help meet the expectations of many Portuguese. The corruption investigation is aimed on allegations of improper behavior around the development of lithium mining and hydrogen projects in the country, and Costa's Chief of Staff Vito Escaria was arrested on Tuesday as police conducted raids on numerous public buildings and additional properties. Prosecutors also named Infrastructure Minister João Galamba as a formal suspect and issued arrest warrants for the mayor of the town of Sines, where some of the projects were to be located, and 2 executives at the company's campus tasked with building the hydrogen production project and data center. Moving forward, the Biden administration has received blatant warnings from American diplomats in the Arab world that its strong backing for Israel's destructive and deadly military campaign in Gaza is losing U.S. Arab publics for generation, according to a diplomatic report. The cable underscores profound anxiety among American officials about the rising anger against the United States that broke out soon after Israel launched its operations against Hamas following the militant groups' attacks in Israel on October 7th that left over 1,400 Israelis dead. We are losing badly on the messaging battle space, reads a Wednesday cable from the U.S. Embassy in Oman, citing conversations with a wide range of trusted and sober-minded contacts. The robust U.S. support for Israel's actions is being seen, the cable warns, as material and moral culpability in what they consider to be possible war crimes. The report from the embassy was written by the second highest U.S. official in Moscow and sent to, among others, the White House's National Security Council, the CIA, and the FBI. While it's just one cable from a regional embassy, it provides a private snapshot of the alarm over the growing and U.S. wave sweeping the Middle East. Another report from the American embassy in Cairo communicated back to Washington the commentary that President Biden's cruelty and disregard for Palestinians exceeded all former U.S. presidents. President Joe Biden has been under rising pressure domestically and abroad over U.S. support of Israel amidst images of destruction in Gaza and dire humanitarian crisis in the region. While the administration has resisted calls for a ceasefire, officials have worked to ramp up aid going into Gaza and push for humanitarian pauses to allow more assistance to flow into the enclave and to allow civilians to flee away from the fighting. U.S. allies in the Arab world in recent days have made clear their deep anger at the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Last weekend, Secretary of State Antony Blinken attended a summit convened by the Jordanian foreign minister that was attended by the top diplomats from Egypt, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, and Saudi Arabia, as well as the Secretary General of the Palestine Liberation Organization. At the summit, the Arab leaders called for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, while Blinken reiterated U.S. position, arguing that it will give Hamas time to regroup and launch another attack on Israel. On Thursday, the White House said Israel had agreed to move forward with daily 4-hour pauses of military operations in areas of northern Gaza. Blinken had an agreement in principle on the pauses after his meetings in Israel last week, even though Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu came out against the idea of humanitarian pauses on Friday. U.S. officials said that was seen as the Israeli Prime Minister playing to his coalition, and the officials noted it was similar to when the Israeli government opposed humanitarian aid getting into Gaza before deciding to allow it. Although Israel had already been instituting such pauses, American officials see this agreement as progress because the Israelis are using the language of pauses, which is something the U.S. believes it can build on. Still, within the administration, concerns have grown over U.S. support for Israel. Now to more stories. Jewish fears German backing for Israel is challenged. Chancellor Olaf Scholz says he's ashamed and outraged at recent anti-Semitic attacks in Germany. He was speaking at an event to mark the anniversary of the November pogroms of 1938, sometimes known as Kristallnacht. Berlin's loyal diplomatic support for Israel is often described as a matter of historic responsibility, but as fighting lingers between Israel and Hamas, social discord is developing in Germany. Some Jewish people in today's Germany are now hiding in their identity. Fears about a rise in anti-Semitism since the outbreak of hostilities between Hamas and Israel are widespread across Europe. For Germany, incidents such as 2 petrol bombs being thrown towards a Berlin synagogue in October sparked acute anxiety due to the nation's Nazi past. Cases of anti-Semitism were, according to preliminary police figures, already on the rise this year before the Hamas attacks, the majority committed by the far right. Since 7th October, senior politicians have urged people, particularly from parts of the political left and Muslim backgrounds, to distance themselves from the actions of Hamas. Israel's security is a fundamental cornerstone of German foreign policy, with the former Chancellor Angela Merkel declaring it to be a statutory reason of state in 2008. On a recent visit to Israel, Olaf Scholz said, "In such difficult times, there is only one place we can be, at Israel's side." But Germany's state doctrine is being visibly challenged on the streets of cities like Berlin. In African shores, Kenyan leader justifies firm economic actions. On Thursday, Kenya's President William Ruto defended his strong economic policies in his first State of the Nation address since coming to power last year, saying they were required to get the country back on track. There has been widespread rage among Kenyans over his government's decision to remove food and fuel subsidies and implement a host of new taxes. The time has come, therefore, to retire the false comforts and illusionary benefits of wasteful expenditure and counterproductive subsidies on consumption, by which we dug ourselves deeper into the hole of avoidable debt, he said. His speech came a day after the finance minister admitted that the country was in difficult financial position. Kenya faces a host of challenges, including depleted government coffers, skyrocketing inflation, and a plunging currency that has sent debt repayment costs soaring. Ruto said that they had to admit that as a country we have been living large and way beyond our means. According to Treasury figures, Kenya had accumulated more than $66 billion in debt by the end of June, equivalent to around 2/3 of gross domestic product. He said the government owed to the people of Kenya to do the right thing and make the tough decisions that were necessary to get the economy back on track. The government is spending about half of its revenue on debt servicing, but he said that progress was being made. Our efforts to stabilize the situation have yielded such progress that next month, in December, we'll be able to settle the first Kenyan shillings as 300 million US dollars or 500 billion Kenyan shillings installment of the 2 billion US dollars Eurobond debt that falls due next year, he said. Global credit ratings agency Fitch Ratings in July downgraded Kenya's ability to repay international lenders from stable to negative, citing tax hikes and social unrest. Burundi prosecutors seek life term from ex-prime minister. Yesterday, prosecutors in Burundi called for sacked Prime Minister Alain Guillaume Bunyoni to be sentenced to life in prison, a judicial source and witnesses said. Since September, he has been on trial before the Supreme Court, sitting in session at the prison in the political capital Gitega, where he is being detained. Bunyoni was Prime Minister from mid-2020 until September 2022, when he was fired days after President Evariste Ndayishimiye warned of a coup plot against him. He is accused of threatening the life of the head of state, undermining national security, trying to topple government institutions, destabilizing the economy, and illegal enrichment, among other charges. Prosecutor Jean Bosco Bukumi said, "For all these reasons, I request that Alain Guillaume Bunyoni be punished with a sentence of penal servitude for life." Bukumi also called for a fine of around 2,500 US dollars and damages equivalent to twice the value of the 153 houses and plots of land and the 43 vehicles belonging to him. A former police chief and internal security minister, Bunyoni was seen as the head of a cabal of military leaders known as the generals who wielded the true political power in Burundi. Appearing in the dock with 6 co-defendants, he pleaded not guilty to all charges and said he should be acquitted because of a lack of evidence against him. The presiding judge said a judgment will be issued within 30 days. Let's take a short break, and when we come back, I'll bring you more stories from Nigeria. Do stay with us. Welcome back. In the wake of election in Nigeria, 5.1 million voters to determine Kogi Imo Bayelsa's fate tomorrow. A total of 5.16962 registered voters are set to shape the destiny of their respective states in the anticipated governorship elections tomorrow, as the people of Kogi, Imo, and Bayelsa states choose their next leaders. According to reports, the number of registered voters closely aligns with the total number of permanent voter cards collected for this vital democratic exercise. Delimitation data from the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) show that the states have a total of 5,409,438 registered voters, while 169,692 permanent voters card (PVCs) were collected by the voters. In Bayelsa State, 1,017,613 permanent voters cards were collected. In Imo State, voters collected 2,318,919 PVCs, while in Kogi State the figure is 1,833,160. Although there are worries of possible voter apathy amidst tension in the state's political landscape, the security agencies have given strong assurances about the safety of all voters. The poll will be conducted in 56 local government areas across the 3 states. This is the first time the Commission will be conducting 3 off-cycle governorship elections simultaneously across different geopolitical zones, according to reports. Mahmoud Yakubu, INEC chairman, said this was made possible by the coincidence of the end of the tenure of the present holders of the offices, which fall within the constitutional time frame of not earlier than 150 days or later than 30 days before the expiration of their terms of office, as enshrined in Section 178, subsection 2 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended. He also assured Nigerians that the electoral body had done everything possible to make sure the weekend's election is free, fair, and credible. However, Yakubu urged stakeholders, specifically the political actors, to give peace a chance and let all its preparations to come to fruition. He gave the assurance while delivering a goodwill message at the signing of the peace accord by political parties and candidates for the Imo State governorship election under the auspices of the National Peace Committee held in Owerri in the Imo State capital. And finally, on the news, Labour leaders cause chaos at Abuja Airport. Nigeria Labour Congress (NLC) and Trade Union Congress (TUC) took travelers arriving and departing the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport by surprise as passengers were stuck. According to reports, the Labour leaders barricaded both main entry and exit of the airport, while on a protest as announced earlier by Labour during a press conference held in Abuja. Cars and airport taxis were stopped from gaining access to pick up passengers. Passengers trekked to get to the road far from the airport to catch up with their taxis, while others trekked to catch up with their flights. There was serious traffic on the road to the airport as motorists are waiting for protests to end. Meanwhile, passengers were seen discussing the surprising situation as some blamed the governor of Imo State, Hope Uzodinma, for the action of Labour following the attack on the president of the National Labour Congress, Joe Ajaero. A recap of major stories says Netanyahu, Israel is not looking to occupy Gaza. Israeli forces hit Gaza's main hospital complex. Delegates suffer from severe smog. Portugal to hold snap elections in March, and diplomats caution Biden on rising Arab anger. That's all on the news. Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend ahead.